I think we live in a pretty crazy world where everything that we do is geared around going to school, learning well enough, and then you go work and make a living. And that is called corporate. And I think one of the biggest things now is more and more people are having like what I would, call like an awakening. People are realizing that maybe that's not the only way to become successful. Don't get me wrong. I have friends and acquaintances that work in corporate and they do really well for themselves. So it is a way. Right? It is definitely not the only way. And I think there are 4 important things that I'm going to cover today that's going to say why it's not the only way. The first one is risk versus reward. And it's crazy because one of people's biggest fears in going the non-traditional route, which I would call like non-corporate route, is because of the risk associated with that. But I think everything's risky. Right? I think everything's risky. And I think the only risk that's in going the entrepreneurial route is if you go into it blindly and you refuse to learn from other people and you refuse to do the work that you need to do in order for you to show yourself approved in whatever, arena you're looking to succeed in. Right? It's not so much of, it's because it's not corporate, it's scary. Because what happens in corporate is, hey, you work here, you work for me, I dictate what you do, I tell you this. And people are used to that because when you think of us as people, that's what we've been accustomed to. When you were younger, you were told what to do by your parents, and you went to school, your teachers told you what to do, and then you got in the workforce. Maybe before your big girl or big boy job, people still told you what to do. It's like what time you come in, what time you leave, how to do this and do that. But the thing about entrepreneurship is not that. You create your own schedule. You dictate how hard you work at your craft. You dictate whether you want to go to a social setting and learn from certain people. You dictate whether you want to improve your network of people, or you dictate whether you don't also. And that's a little bit scary. And I think that's the reason why it's scary, is because a lot of the weight and the lifting of that is on you. Right? So I think if you've been learning and been around the right people, I think it's a lot less risky, in my opinion, because you have other people that have succeeded and you just decide to surround yourself with those people. So you just make less mistakes. The second point is stability versus security. I think there's a common, I don't know if it's necessarily a misconception, that it's more secure working for someone else than it is working for yourself. I don't believe so, once again, and obviously this is just my opinion. I think there's people who might have some compelling argument to that, but I don't believe so. I think when you work for someone else, I think your success is at the mercy of that person. People make bad business moves all the time. So if you work for someone else and that person makes a bad business move, it doesn't just affect them, it affects the entire company. It doesn't matter how many people work in that company. We see it all the time in the news where certain companies do, budget cuts. And when they do budget cuts, it affects the people that they work with. You're going to pay the employees less, or they're going to have to furlough some people so they have enough money for the people that are there. So it's not necessarily secure. It's just whatever decision works best for you. Once again, is that thing of like, my decisions are in my hands versus my decision being in the hands of somebody else's. And if I had to choose, I'll choose my hands all day, every day. The next point is creative freedom. Not just creative freedom as in like if you're creative, then being an entrepreneur works for you. I think sometimes we overestimate what it's like what creativity means. It's not just for the people who are artsy and things like that. Creative freedom just means when things are not going your way, you get to create something else. You have the freedom to do that. And I know so many people, and I'm sure most of you guys do as well, so many people who they know a lot of things at the places they work that they can change and it'll lead to such better results. But their manager, their supervisor, or the owner of the company is just not with it. They're like, no, this is not how we do things. And this person is essentially sitting on a gold mine of information that they could use to improve the company, but they're unable to do that because they don't call the shots. Right? They're not the person that says what things should be. And I think the value of that in entrepreneurship is if I feel this is going to work, it's going to put the company and the people in the company in a better position, I can do that right away. I don't have to second guess or third guess myself before I make that move. I just make the move. And if it's the wrong move, I go back to what I was doing before. Whereas in a corporate setting, sometimes when you make a wrong move, it takes a lot because you have to have a lot of moving pieces. It takes a lot to revert back to your old decision, which is why people are a lot more set in their ways about changing things, because it just takes a lot more to go back to that. Whereas as an entrepreneur, I can change it. If it doesn't work, I go back to what it was before as I find another way that might work. So you have a lot more creative freedom, whether is freedom or schedules. Like so many times we started working with different clients here in our market, and different clients sometimes require different schedules for success. And I have the creative freedom to be able to do that. I don't have to say, okay, well, this is how we've always done it. This schedule seems to be the only one that's been working in the past, so we have to adhere to the schedule even though it doesn't work or what we're doing now. I just changed the schedule. And I've made mistakes before with those schedules. I'm like, maybe this one doesn't work. And we just revert right back to what we were doing before. So I think creative freedom is a huge part of why entrepreneurship or non-traditional business will work in this case. And then the next one, or I think what I believe the last and most important one has to do with pay. Pay based on predetermined skill set versus performance-based pay. This was a part for me, I guess this is more of a personal anecdote. When I first started in the industry, I got made an offer from another company while I was still learning how to become a businessman. I got made an offer that was very compelling because I wasn't making that amount before. And it was almost double what I was making here at the moment. But what made me stick with this was because of the earning potential. The earning potential is limitless, essentially, because it was based on my skill set and how much I chose to get better as a person was what's going to determine how much I got paid. Whereas where I was going to work before, they were offering me pretty good compensation, but it was going to be that way for the foreseeable future. Because I wasn't the person, it wasn't based on how I performed. It was based on me being there. So that was the value that was placed on me. And just saying that kind of like, for me personally, it kind of makes me cringe, right? It's like someone just placed a value on you. It's like, based on our interview or our series of interviews, this is how much I believe you're worth. Which is kind of a scary statement because I plan to get better as a person. So hopefully what I was worth 2 months ago is not the same thing I'm worth now. I'm better. I've been learning, I've been studying, I've been, getting around the right people. I know more now and I do more now, so I should get compensated more. And unfortunately in the corporate world, that's not how it works. You don't just ask for a pay raise after 2 months. You don't just ask for a pay raise after a year. Sometimes you have to be in a certain place for like 3, 5, 10 years at a time before you ask. I mean, I guess you could ask, but before they consider a pay raise, let me say it that way. Whereas, in performance-based pay, all you can do is teach and train yourself how to perform better. You can always watch more information. You can always read more information. You can always learn from more people. So because I can always do those things, that means I can always increase my performance. So if I get paid based on my performance, I think I'm always in a better spot. If you're one of those people who've made up their mind and you're not willing to push yourself on a daily, weekly, monthly basis to get better, then maybe the corporate thing of just placing a value tag on you and say, based on our interview, this is why I believe you work, that might work out for you. But personally, I don't think that's the way to go because I'm looking to get better. And the better I become, the more I want to get compensated for the work that I'm putting in because I'm bringing more value to the job market. So I think I should get more value added to me as a person as well. And that is my take on, corporate environment versus what we do, which is more of the entrepreneurial, non-traditional pace.